Good morning. Welcome into Five Clubs here on Golf Channel. You can also listen. That is PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. I am Gary Williams, and this program is always brought to you by Century Insurance, right by you. It's about business insurance, and if you have those needs, I promise they're going to be met by them, plus all the great things they do in the game of golf. We're proud to have them as our presenting sponsor, but their relationship with the USGA and the First Tee and so many other things. Century Insurance, Golf Pride. I'm going to play some golf next week, and you know what? The reverse taper putter grip system, I put that grip on my putter 2 years ago when it was a prototype, and I played a reasonable amount of golf, and I haven't had to replace it, not only because it's great, it's the best grip that I've had, but because the materials are so good, it hasn't worn out like so many others do. That's why Golf Pride is the leader. And then finally, Peter Millar, this little Rooney sweater blazer that I'm wearing, you can have it. Not this one, because you probably don't slip into a medium that comfortably. I do, but you can get your size at petermillar.com for anything you need for your lifestyle. From soccer fields to golf courses to boardrooms to swimming pools, it's Peter Millar. We got a lot on the docket. It's our getaway day. We got dogs. We got picks. Yep, they're playing in Japan. A smaller field, a good field, a no-cut field, which we're probably going to be saying a lot of that over the next couple of years. A smaller field, a no-cut field. It's the PGA Tour. All right, we're also going to talk some DP World Tour and really the European point of view with Andrew Coltart, who's going to be joining us. Love having Andrew on the program. He was a part of a Ryder Cup team who looked like they were on their way to victory in 1999 with a big lead, and then Brookline happened on that Sunday. But I love his point of view. He'll be with us around the bottom of the hour, and then Hope Barnett is going to join us. This is somebody who is forging her own path covering the game of golf on the LPGA. She's a host for the LPGA, a senior content creator for them. She will be with me in 15 minutes because the LPGA still has 7 events, including and starting this week in Shanghai. In the news earlier this week of the absence of Nelly Korda at the International Crown as a blow for that event. I remember when the event was created. I love the format. I was there for a couple of the International Crowns. Again, format's great, field's always really great, but that is a loss to lose Nelly Korda. But I want to get Hope's perspective on a year that has been kind of buttoned up with a lot of parity. Nobody has broken away like Nelly did last year, and Jeeno Thitikul has been the best player, but it's not like she has a bushel full of wins. So much to discuss with Hope when she joins me here in a couple of minutes. And a couple other things before I get to kind of an opening little thought or two. Amelia Duran, who is part of the Sirius XM broadcast team. She also does a fair amount of work for Golf Channel as well. She was a terrific player at Wake Forest. She's now, again, talking about forging a path. Amelia is excellent at what she does. She's still also a great player. She was doing the broadcast at the U.S. Women's Amateur at Bandon Dunes in the late summertime and also managed to get to match play. Well, she's not working from a broadcast standpoint this week at the U.S. Women's Mid-Am, but she's now into the quarterfinals. What a player and what a career she is putting together as somebody who is still so good competitively, but also somebody who is really good at broadcasting and talking about the game of golf and calling golf. Because calling golf on radio means really being descriptive about what it is that you're seeing. And she had the winning call on the radio side for the U.S. Open for J.J. Spaun. One other note, and it's not easy to transition to somebody's passing, but Andy Neer passed away a month ago. And there are people who are going to hear that name and they're going to say, well, my gosh, I know Andy. Andy passed away a month ago. Now, Andy's brother, Tim, the two of them are two of the great friends of golf that golf has really had. Tim had an enormous impact on creating Golf Channel. Him and Joe Gibbs and Arnold Palmer were the trifecta to make that happen in 1995. Andy had a wonderful career in real estate development, and then he was the patriarch and the benevolent dictator at Old Sandwich in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And they just had their Pro Scratch event, an annual event that they have a lot of guys who either made it to the PGA Tour, had very good PGA Tour careers, like Jason Duffner was in the field this week. He's a major champion. And their Pro Scratch is kind of a cross-section of guys who were tour players. Steve Marino in the field. I can go on, but this is about Andy. Andy passed away a month ago, and he was somebody who was the driving force and the visionary. And if anybody out there who's listening to this has played Old Sandwich, you know how special that experience is. Brad Faxon is a member there, and Andy is somebody who wanted to create an environment for the love of the game and for people who come there to love being there, loving the game. And so they renamed their Pro Scratch the Andy Neer Invitational appropriately and with great touch. And I know everybody up there probably hoisted one or two and toasted him repeatedly over the last couple of days and hugged each other with intent before they departed. I had the good fortune of being around him a modest amount. And I remember telling him when he created Old Sandwich after being up there, and I actually was doing an instructional series shoot with the aforementioned Brad Faxon, and I said, you know, Andy, I know what this birth certificate says about when this place was born, but my gosh, it feels like it's much older in the best ways. And one other thing about Andy Neer, if you saw Andy, you also saw his golden retriever. And appropriately on a day where we honor dogs in the game of golf, there's nobody who loved his dog and had him around the game of golf more than Andy Neer. So to all the folks up there at Old Sandwich and all of his friends who I know they had his service a couple of weeks ago, heavy hearts, but he left a lasting legacy in the game of golf. All right, let me talk about a few things before we turn our attention to the LPGA, because I mentioned Andrew Coltart coming on the program, and it's the Spanish Open this week. And the Spanish Open now has a little more spring in its step because Augusta National made the decision a little bit over a month ago to forego giving invitations to the next year's Masters to fall series winners on the PGA Tour. And so they identified a handful of global national championships like the Hong Kong Open and the Japan Open, South African Open, Australian Open, Scottish Open, and Spanish Open. And I don't know if it had any effect on the field list this year. I don't think so if you look at it. But obviously, Jon Rahm doesn't need a Masters invitation. He'll go there as long as he wants because he's won the Masters. But it makes me think, and I will ask this question of Andrew Coltart about Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau, because those two guys, and if you look at the cross-section of players who are currently playing on LIV, it's just that. It's a cross-section of newbies like a Caleb Surratt, who left the University of Tennessee, or Tom McKibben, who I know Rory McIlroy, he said, look, everybody has to make their own decisions. I wish he didn't make the choice that he made, but he understood. And I could go on. David Puig, another, he's in the field this week, a wonderful young Spanish talent. I don't know what these choices are going to mean in the grand scheme of things when it comes to their overall career. And I don't really use the term legacy because I actually think by definition it's misused, but in terms of the way people look at careers when careers are over, because for most of these players, it was either on the back end when they made the choice to go to LIV, and it was almost, and if you want to call it what it was, a cash grab for the likes of Henrik Stenson and Ian Poulter and Lee Westwood, Graham McDowell, Paul Casey. Look, I can go on, but that's that subset of players. And then I mentioned the younger guys, and you wonder at what point, and how long will LIV go on? I don't know the answer to that. We had Josh Carpenter here yesterday, and yes, they piled up some losses, and everybody out there who's a LIV fan, don't be so hypersensitive when people analyze what's going on with LIV. It's not always criticism. It can be just analysis. It doesn't have to be one or the other, or even both for that matter. In analyzing it, they've lost a lot of money. That's a fact. That's not a criticism. But when it comes to Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau, they're in the heart of their window being open in terms of their productivity. And I think guys like Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau, they're going to be evaluated based on the bold type of the greatest wins that they have. And both of them have won two major championships. Jon has won the U.S. Open and the Masters, and Bryson has two U.S. Opens. So PGA Tour wins are, for them, some additive, whereas they don't necessarily need that to get into the Hall of Fame. But it's interesting because when you look at LIV came along at a time when, again, these players, for the most part, were either in prime or end. And then you have a couple who a lot of people believe can be really, really good players globally. And I've already mentioned their names. But I think about mergers, and I think about mergers in sports. The AFL and the NFL, they established a merger in 1966, and then they actually became one league the year after Joe Namath did that. And it wasn't like he played great, but he had a couple moments. And when you do that, and you're a big-time dog, almost 20 points against the Baltimore Colts, and you win, he didn't have to do much more to get into the Hall of Fame, which he did. And the truth is, he didn't actually do that much more. Respectfully, he didn't. And I love Joe Namath. But Len Dawson and Lance Allworth, they were at the beginning of their careers, and then they merged, and then they had Lance less than Lenny Dawson and Joe Namath. And then the NBA and the ABA, they merged in 1976. So guys like Julius Erving and George the Iceman Gervin and Moses Malone. Moses Malone was a child when he chose to play professional basketball. He didn't even play college basketball. So they had just a cup of coffee in the ABA, and then it was about the NBA. And so their careers, the full breadth of what they did in their sports were in those. It will be interesting to see the evaluation when the time comes for some, not all, because most did their work, the lion's share of the resume that they built, like Westwood and Poulter and Stenson and McDowell and Garcia before LIV. But for Rahm and DeChambeau, it's in the guts of their and I'm not going to say they plateau, the prime of their window right now. And how long and what will the evaluation be? But I do say this for guys like Jon Rahm, and the fines will come due at the end of the year. And Richard Bland, by the way, apparently is coming to a resolution so he can play some senior events and be eligible for the Senior Open. That Jon Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton and guys like that, the resolution for them to be able to continue to play DP World Tour events is important. It's important for them in terms of kind of the additive, but ultimately those guys, it's bold type, it's green jackets, it's claret jugs, it's Wanamaker trophies, it's Jack Nicklaus medals that will determine their Hall of Fame fate. And by the way, they're both going to the Hall of Fame. All right, we take a break. When we come back, Hope Barnett from the LPGA hosts there, her perspective on a year that continues with 7 events still to come starting this week in Shanghai, her look at not only the best player this year, but the best player last year and a whole host of other things, as well as Andrew Coltart coming up bottom of the hour. We got dogs, we got picks. It's a Wednesday, it's 5 Clubs, Golf Channel, and Channel 92 on PGA Tour Radio's Sirius XM. We're back after this. Back in this Wednesday edition of 5 Clubs, Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio as well. That's Sirius XM, Channel 92. And this segment brought to you by Century Insurance. Business insurance needs are met at Century. They are right by you. All right, joining me now from the LPGA host, a senior content creator covering the tour on a week-to-week basis. She's off to the International Crown soon enough. The LPGA in Shanghai this week. Hope Barnett with me this morning. Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for taking the time. If your cat meanders in the background, don't be distracted. We like the creatures. It adds to the live elements. We appreciate it. Let me start with this year because it's interesting. The PGA Tour and the LPGA kind of had a similar year last year with Scheffler doing what he did and then Nelly doing what she did. And then the PGA Tour had another Scheffler year, and the LPGA didn't have another Nelly year. There's been great parity, which is great because it shows how many people are capable of winning. Who is or what is the story of the year thus far on the LPGA in your estimation?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think you said it best yourself, the parity. There has not been a single repeat winner in 26 events. We have had 27 different winners, which is absolutely wild. We have never seen that on the LPGA Tour. I mean, if you're going to pick a star, it's got to be the world number one, Jeeno Thitikul. But like, even then, she's had some really great finishes, but it's not like she's had a year like Nelly had last year. So to me, like the big story of the whole season, of the whole LPGA Tour season, is just how many different winners we've had, because it shows the depth of the LPGA. It shows just how good everybody is. And spoiler alert, one of those wins has not come from Nelly, which is crazy. Like you said, after the year we had last year. So it's been wild, but it's been fun to watch. And, hopefully fans have been able to learn about some new players that maybe didn't get quite as much face time before.
Yeah, Hope, we'll get to Nelly here in a second, but let me stay with Jeeno here for a moment, because I think replacing Nelly, no matter how the manner came, it's not like Nelly's been bad. I mean, Nelly's 6th in the CME race. She's had a productive year. She's had a round here or there that has probably deprived her of a win, maybe more. Jeeno Thitikul, give people an understanding. First of all, she had some heartbreak. She got gutted a major this year, but her ascending to 1, I think, makes her absolutely among the stories of the year, because I, for one, didn't see it coming.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I did see it coming, just because she has been, I'm like, just gonna say I have. She's just been so good, like when she first came out on the LPGA, she was a star. She won almost immediately. And then I would say for a little bit, she was still contending, but wasn't necessarily like doing what she's doing now, And then last year we saw her kind of trending, and then I just knew, like, at the beginning of this year, I was like, she is going to be world number 1. I host a podcast, an LPGA podcast with Emma Talley, a former player, and we both were like, she is going to be the world number 1 at some point. I mean, just because she hasn't won a major, and she hasn't won a major this year, which I think is crazy. I genuinely thought at the beginning of the year, I was like, she might just win all of them, because she's just been playing so well. But I don't think that's to say that she, doesn't have that stardom factor. She's huge in Thailand. Like when you go to Thailand, the crowds that follow her are absolutely insane. And she's creating such a name for herself here as well. I mean, she's had 11 top 10 finishes with 4 runner-up finishes this year, which, I mean, it's incredible. But yeah, I saw it coming, but at the same time, after you see a year like Nelly had last year, you don't necessarily think anyone is going to catch her. But if it was going to be anybody, it was going to be Jeeno.
Yeah, Hope, that was kind of the angle that I thought, that Nelly had enough of a firm grip on it that it was going to require something, maybe a combination of things. Her not winning, which she hasn't, and again, she hasn't been bad, but Jeeno she's been so consistently productive. Let me ask you about Lydia Ko. She's one of those winners. She won early in the year. I think that Lydia's year last year reminds me to a degree of kind of Rory's year this year. There were boxes checked. They were historic. They were sentimental. When you win at the old course, come on, there's something incredibly special about that. And I think people have been wondering how much time is left on the meter. What does your intuition tell you about the 28-year-old Lydia Ko, and how much longer?
Yeah, I think it's easy to speculate that, like, she's 28, but she's been around for so long.
Yes.
But 28 is still so young, me coming from a 28-year-old. No, I honestly, I think a lot of people are like, oh, like she's going to retire at 30, she's going to hang it up. But I kind of don't think she will. I think she's going to surprise everybody and just keep going. And I don't even know if in her head she necessarily has a timeline, because she said, like, I still have things I want to achieve. Like, I know she wants to get the career Grand Slam. I know she wants to win all the majors. She's only 2 majors away from that, so if she does that in a couple of years, maybe that changes things. But I think she still has things she wants to check off, which is, it's Lydia Ko. Like, she's been so consistent her whole career. Like, obviously she had a few years in there where she didn't do as much, but to see her come back, get the trifecta in the Olympics, like you said, win at the old course last year, which I was there for. It was just, it was wild. I was like tearing up on 18, because I was like, this is just so emotional for her. And then to get in the LPGA Hall of Fame, which is so hard to get into, I think she's going to take it past 30, but I also think, I don't even know if she really has a timeline in her head, So I'm intrigued to see for sure, but I hope personally and selfishly she stays on the LPGA longer because I love her.
Yeah, me too. And one little thing about St. Andrews, she went through Nelly to do it, which it was
Exactly.
Nelly's year, and that to me was kind of the icing right there. Lexi Thompson, for people who, maybe kind of mildly paid attention to when she, came out and said, look, I'm going to play less. And a lot of people, I think, interpreted that as the hard retirement speech. But it was, I'm going to step away. And then she turned around and we saw her earlier in the year and she has 11 starts. Do you think that this is kind of the Lexi formula for the next couple of years? Do you kind of think that this is what it's going to be?
I really do. I think when people heard, I'm going to step away from a full-time schedule, I mean, she didn't necessarily say how many tournaments she was going to play, but I think a lot of people assumed like, oh, she might play like 4 or 5. But to be fair, she never really said exactly how many she was going to play. And I think all the golf entities and, journalists and even the LPGA were like, oh, well, we want to honor her. She's stepping away from a full schedule. And it just so happened that stepping away from a full schedule meant, maybe 10 or 11 starts in a year. So I do think this is what it's going to be like for her. And I think, same thing like we were just talking about with Lydia Ko, like I think she's just kind of making it her own. She's planning a wedding, she's getting married.
Yep.
She's been in the spotlight for so long. I think she's like, I just kind of want to live a normal life for a while, like plan a wedding, play in the tournaments I want to play in, maybe not travel internationally, but just kind of do her thing. And I love that she's not really worried about what people think. She's just like, yeah, I'm going to play in what I want to play in. And that's what it is. So I respect it, but I do think the whole thing has been like funny of people like, wait, I thought she retired. But to be fair, she never really said she was retiring. I think we all just kind of assumed that's what she did,
I think that's what it was. It was an assumption. Nelly's year, how would you describe it?
I honestly, it's funny because, she hasn't had the year like she had last year. She hasn't won 7 times, by now she would have already won 6 times. But like she has been consistent. Like you said yourself, like she hasn't had a bad year. Maybe if anything, it's kind of been a rebuilding year. She's still the world number 2 in the world. And at one point earlier in the season, her stats were actually better than they were last year. So it's not like she was playing bad golf. She was playing good golf. She just, wasn't necessarily getting over the finish line, but we still have time, the rest of the year. I honestly do think she'll get a win. I think everyone should pay attention to the Annika at Pelican because for some reason she loves that course. It's kind of close to where she's from. So I think consistent, even though she hasn't won, I still think she's had a good year. And, she said, guess what? I don't have anything to prove to you guys. So I'm just going to keep playing my golf and doing my thing. And hopefully we can get a win out of the world number 2 by the end of the year.
All right, before I let you go, give me 2 players who you think have made real strides this year and you expect them to continue to ascend. Give me 2 future bets who maybe their price was lower at the beginning of 25. It's now higher, but you think it's going much higher in 26. Who are they?
Okay, I gotta say pretty much anyone from Team Japan at the Honda Life Plus International Crown. Like, take your pick. You want to pick 2? I mean, you could go with Miyu Yamashita. You could go with Ryo Takeda. I think those 2 players are 2 to keep an eye on for sure. I think at the beginning of the year, like we saw some Japanese players trending, but I think either of them going into next year they're going to do really big things. Rio's going to win a major. It's going to happen, I would say probably in 2026. And then also the EY twins. So pretty much anyone from Japan, if they fly that Japanese flag, I'd say keep an eye on them because it's very promising that they're going to win a lot next year and maybe win crown as well.
Okay, I am going to ask you one more because Stacey Lewis deserves a thought from you.
Yeah.
When her career really took off, I was lucky enough to be around it to a degree that, it was right there. Starting in 2011, winning the craft. She wins at St. Andrews herself, which adds that extra oomph to winning another major. With that moment, with the putter raised, how would you describe her career?
I don't say this lightly. I genuinely think it's been legendary. I mean, she has done so much in her time. She was the world number one at one point. Like you said, she won at St. Andrews. She's been on multiple Solheim Cup teams, and she captained a victorious one last year right outside of the nation's capital. So I think legendary is a good way to explain it. And not only has she had a good career playing wise, but she's done so much for the women's game. And I don't think this will be the last we see of her. I think she'll still be involved in women's golf and raising the game. But yeah, I mean, I love Stacey. She's a legend, and I'm excited to see what she does next.
Yeah, I for people, and I think most people who watch this channel know, spinal fusion, diagnosed as a child with scoliosis. I've always said, when I look at her, I go, grit. She's got so much grit, and hyper competitive, and a fantastic career. Listen, have a great trip to the International Crown, a fantastic event. 7 events left in the season. We're looking forward to doing this again real soon. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
All right, there is Hope Barnett, again, host on the LPGA. As she mentioned, she's got her podcast with Emma Talley as well, senior content creator for the LPGA. And those were winning words presented by Century Insurance. Business insurance needs are always met with Century. We take a break. Andrew Coltart from Sky Sports, his view of not only the rearview mirror of the Ryder Cup, but what's ahead for the DP World Tour starting this week with the Masters invitation on the line for the winner if they're not already otherwise exempt. And John Rahm going for his 4th. He joins me, and we got dogs, we got picks. It's a Wednesday. It's 5 Clubs. We're back after this. Back in, bottom of the hour here, Wednesday edition of 5 Clubs on Golf Channel and also Sirius XM's Channel 92. That's PGA Tour Radio. This segment brought to you by Peter Millar. This little Rooney sweater blazer that I'm wearing, you can wear it. Probably not this one. You have to be diminutive to slip into this. That's code for tiny. But anything you need in any size at petermillar.com. He's not a medium. He's a fully grown man. He joins me now from Sky Sports. Former Ryder Cup member, 1999 for Europe. He is Andrew Coltart. My friend, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Yes, I'm in great form. Thanks very much, Gary. Listen, that little number you're wearing looks absolutely fantastic on you, sir. Don't you worry.
Thank you, my friend. All right, let me ask you about since LIV was started, I think when you look at LIV performances, some people go, well, look, they have some of the best players in the world that are playing there. They show up at majors, they contend, they've won. In the case of evaluating guys who are on LIV that then put their toe in the water on the DP World Tour, what has been your process of evaluating their production, their performance in these events on LIV?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one or two of them, when they have come back to play, well, I mean, Hatton has always been fantastic in whatever he has come back into. John's been very, very good, just hasn't quite sort of achieved what Tyrrell has achieved. But then you look at Brooks, who had a very healthy performance over there at the French Open a few weeks ago. It looked like he was starting to find form again. And last week, of course, with DJ up until just a horrible Scottish East Coast Friday afternoon when the weather really kicked in. And he had a bit of a bad finish, but he was going pretty nicely. I think it almost kind of still sort of stretches a little bit of sort of slightly underplayed in a way, but if they do start to play a little bit more, you can see the sort of form from certainly those kind of guys starting to come back. Young David Puig, young Spanish kid, he's very, very talented, and of course still very embryonic in his career, but he looks like he's got a tremendous amount of potential.
Do you think guys like him, I mentioned at the top of the program talking about kind of this cross-section of players, on live, Caleb Surratt, young American, who again, when you're on a Walker Cup team and you're basically just headed off to college, you're really, really good. And Tom McKibben, another young, talented guy. Do you think that there is some type of necessity for them to have some balance of their schedule as they get into what is their maturation and their maturing stage, and it can't just be live events?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I think if you're only playing, what is it? Is it 13 weeks that they play? 13, 14 weeks. That's not a lot of golf, and it's a lot of money for somebody that's still very, very young. I think it would be good to have some kind of a balance. Now, obviously, that's politically something that still has to be worked out at the minute. While I believe while appeals are ongoing, obviously they're allowed to play. But while they have that opportunity, I must say it's I enjoy watching them play. I like the fact that they are in the field. They're incredibly talented, but obviously that it will rub other people's noses up the wrong way.
When you think about Rory, and you have had a front row to not only his career, but you've had a front row to the great players in Europe, and obviously I'm sure you were inspired as a young kid, and you think about the growth, and whether it was Woozy and Langer, and I can go on, and obviously Faudo and Seve, and now we have Rory at this stage where he'll be 37 next year, Grand Slam completed, now multiple time kind of centerpiece of road wins for the European Ryder Cup team. In your mind, is he already the best European player of all time? Yes, he is. Absolutely. I think the slightly bizarre thing is we all thought that was going to be the case way back around about 2014, when unfortunately he fell over the following year. He fell over a ball playing football, damaged his ankle, and the momentum that he was carrying on ceased. And he's carried on, of course, winning many events each year, both PGA Tour and DP World Tour. But of course, what made it very, very difficult for him, of course, was at the start of every season was always going to be this, career Grand Slam thing. And for 11 years, it was very, very difficult for him to get through that. And finally he has. And there has been, the point I'm trying to make is there has been that little spell where that lack of momentum has just held him back for achieving what we all knew he was hopefully eventually and subsequently did go on and achieve. And as a result of that, yes, it makes it into that, golfing immortal group of the other five career Grand Slam winners. And, from here on in, Rory obviously can add to the tremendous CV that he already possesses. The Ryder Cup experience, as somebody who had one, and as somebody who was on a team, with a lead going into the last day, and look, Brookline was unhinged. This got to a level of repugnant language and behavior that was just so reprehensible. The result was different, and I hope that's not the thing you'll remember most. But what are the on-course moments for you that will stand tall in your mind going forward?
That's another good one. I think ultimately the way Europe had devised the plan, both foursomes and four balls, I thought they seriously sort of outdid the United States side. Each one has their own sort of special little moments. Fleetwood was obviously Herculean through the first four sessions from a European perspective. Rory, I thought, Rory is much loved wherever he goes. So for him to encounter that kind of animosity, I thought that was pretty tough for him to deal with. I thought young Robert McIntyre, obviously who won last week, I thought he had a brilliant way of dealing with it. If somebody shouted a fairly unfavourable remark at him, he would knock the putt in and then blow them a kiss. I thought that was a wonderful way of dealing with that. But also a huge fight back by the Americans on that that final afternoon. And I think also as well, I thought Justin Rose, given how old he is at 45 years old,
excellent.
and how he performed in the incredible atmosphere in Cauldron. Of course, it was Bethpage Black was superb. But I think yes, look, it will ultimately be remembered for the result and for the great performances. There will be the little sort of asterisks about crowd behaviour. But had it been dealt with appropriately from the start, it may have dissuaded some of these
imbeciles. You can say it.
Yeah. It would have dissuaded them for carrying on in that ridiculous manner.
Yeah, very fair point. There are people watching, I hope not many, who think that like the Real Housewives of I don't know where, I'm glad I don't, that's reality television. No, it isn't. That's contrived television. Reality television, Andrew, as you know, it's sports. And I say that because I think that there are teams that the faces may change, but the jerseys don't, and they can have your number. And I think Europe has the Americans' number. And look, talent, and without that, the idea of the intangible stuff being able to manifest itself, it can't. I think they have America's number. And when you know it and they know it, that can give you a half a point or a point. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think the European side, they've got a tremendous amount of experience in there, as have the American side, obviously. But they seem to be able to drill down into these little intangibles that you're talking about, Gary, and find out how to manifest a positive outcome with them. No stone is left unturned. A lot of they sort of look into the future and see what could play out and have plans to deal with that. They've also, of course, got the added benefit, and also did have the added benefit of tried and tested formulas, which they could always fall back on. So they were flexible. Keegan Bradley didn't really have that. First-time captain coming in, trying to make partnerships that probably didn't exist and shouldn't have existed, and all that kind of ultimately went against Keegan Bradley.
Do you think, does your intuition kind of tell you that Luke will bring the band back together again at Adair Manor?
It's a great point. I think my colleague Paul McGinley mentioned it, though. I mean, if he does, then the Europeans would be unlikely to bleed a rookie captain in America for the fourth time. So if he takes 3, he's almost going to have to take 4.
Wow.
So I said at the time that if the players want him to to captain a third time, such incredible bonds have been made that it would be a strong man to say no. But then again, can he do 4? Will he do 4? Does he want to do 4? Will his wife let him do 4? I mean, it's a huge sacrifice as well on your loved ones and close friends also. So he's got an awful lot of thinking to do.
It's true. I mean, and unlike many captains who, when they get this post, their kids may be in college, they may be out of the house. He's got 3 girls that are going through. I know, because I had a house full of girls. It's a lot. It's a lot. But that again hangs in the balance. So does, where does America turn? All right, we turn with Andrew Coltart to 5 quick questions. 5 to go for Andrew Coltart. Here we go. Who was the player you played with, a lot or a little, who you thought had the most hysterical temper and the most colorful language used on the golf course?
Tony Johnson. He was absolutely brilliant. Made me laugh all the time.
All right, your favorite pair of shoes all time, and I'm not just talking about golf shoes. What's the favorite pair of shoes you've ever owned?
Oh, well, it's going to have to be sort of golf shoes because they were just beautiful. A pair of FootJoy Classics in the day. Lovely little golden spike. A lovely little gold FG on the side of the shoe.
With the real nails, like the real spikes, right?
Yes, absolutely. You had to make that noise when you walked down the path.
There's really nothing better. I've admitted this before. I'll admit, I used to watch the Masters wearing my spikes as a kid. What a dork. I mean, what an absolute golf nerd. All right, here we go. Give me, Andrew, the European venue that you hope in your lifetime will host a Ryder Cup.
goodness me. Oh, well, it's about. I'm getting. Royal Dornoch.
Oh! Could that little town handle the world coming there?
No, definitely not. But I'd love to see them deal with that golf course.
If I could have my room at Link's house, sign me up. That place that's the Holy Land right there. That's a good call. All right, what is your favorite soup?
What is my favorite soup?
Yeah.
Mulligatawny.
Really?
Well, I just thought it would make everybody run away and try and ask what it is.
No. I mean, if anybody is a Seinfeld fan, there's the soup Nazi. Elaine gets a hold of his mulligatawny recipe. You just said that. Now that just sprung a thought in people's mind who are Seinfeld aficionados. Mulligatawny. All right, we end with this. Who was the player in your life that you enjoyed most walking in, whether it was in a closeout match or you beat him in medal play, that you took the greatest satisfaction of getting the better of that day?
Oh, goodness me, Gary.
Come on, you had guys you loved beating.
Oh, that's so long ago, mate. That's so long, I cannot remember.
Those wonderful memories never leave you.
Those wonderful memories. Who did I have walk? But I have to beat them.
Maybe you didn't, but you really, the guy you desired to beat most.
Okay, right. Well, I ended up losing a playoff to him at the Johnny Walker Classic in Tanamera in Singapore, and it was Ian Woosnam. And just going toe-to-toe with a legend of the game who was fiercely combative, an unbelievable ball striker, former world's #1. That was just such a thrill to be part of.
There we go. That's a great one. Hey, my friend, I hope you get a little rest. I know you got some stuff on the road, but a little time at home. You're awfully kind. Thanks so much.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Great to see you. Take care,
pal. You too. There he is, Andrew Coltart, Sky Sports. We take a quick break. When we come back, we got picks, we got dogs, and we got to get away. I mean, we're going to get away for a little bit. We'll explain why. We're back on 5 Clubs Golf Channel and Sirius XM's Channel 92 on PGA Tour Radio. Back after this. Make you smile. It's what they do. It is time for Dogs of the Week. This segment brought to you by Golf Pride. When it comes to grip options, you know that there is no better option than Golf Pride. That's why they're trusted by the most players at every level around the world. All right, we finished the week with Dogs of the Week. If you've got a dog that you take on the golf course, loves being around the game of golf, loves watching golf, send it to us. It's dogs@fiveclubsgolf.com. Every week, we trot them out, and every week, they make us smile. So let's get to this batch of Dogs of the Week, and we begin with Bishotti. The owner is Jim Shoddy. This is at the 18th hole at Desert Mountain Club in Scottsdale. Bishotti loves watching the golfers. Doesn't like that robotic mower. Neither do I. That's a job right there. All right, that is Morris. The owner is Ross James, pictured at Selashian Golf Links in the Central Oregon coast near Lincoln City, Oregon. Beautiful dog. That is Trina, Chase McGraw's dog. Trina is an English bulldog at Cape Fear Country Club in Wilmington. Chase off John McGinnis, if you would please, for the benefit of the membership. That is Tinkerbell. That is a great promotion there for the Cognizant Classic, because that's where she is. That's Pete Donnelly's dog, a retired golf professional in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. And finally, we finish. That is Joe Weiler, who sent the picture in, but that is Andy Benier, pictured with Layla at the Banbury Golf Course in Eagle, Idaho. That dog lives on a golf course and should, because that is one sturdy hound right there. Again, send the dogs in at dogs@fiveclubsgolf.com. All right, we've got a field this week on the PGA Tour with some real name players, short field, no cut. So why don't we give you some picks? And here are our picks from the staff. They didn't update the standings. I mean, come on, I had Scheffler at the Procore. All right, we move on. I'm taking Alex Noren. The guy's had a great fall. He's really one of the great comeback stories in golf. Hideki Matsuyama for Gil Hanse, for Taylor Zarzer, for Jay Billis. Johnson plays Xander. Xander played well at the Ryder Cup, to his great credit. Brendan goes with Rasmus Højgaard, loading up on Sky Miles. And Emma, did she really take Max Homa? Or is that some type of inside straight from the staff? Emma just ran a marathon. She ran a marathon in Minneapolis. Congratulations, by the way, to her. First opportunity we've had to share that news. What an athlete, what a golfer, what a broadcaster. So those are our picks for the Baycurrent. And just a little programming news. If you turn the channel on Monday, you go, what's going on? Well, guess what? There's a great college golf event that they play at St. Andrews. And if you think the weather was a little dodgy last week at the Dunhill, you get into mid-October in Scotland. I played golf into Scotland in October, but early October. But a great collegiate event. You will see Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So a little hiatus for us. You know what that means for all of us? Golf. We're back on Monday, the 20th. For all of us here at Signature Sports Group and 5 Club, have a great Wednesday. We'll see you soon enough.